That is not good enough. At least 50 towns are affected by rape gangs. Places like Peterborough, Derby, Birmingham, Nottingham, Leicester, Rotherham, Rochdale and Preston.
We are providing for local inquiries. We're investing more on delivering truth and justice for victims than the party opposite did in 14 long years.
It's now 4 months since I asked him for a full national inquiry. Instead, he promised 5 local inquiries.
Mr. Speaker, my position is absolutely clear. Where there's evidence, the police should investigate and there should be appropriate prosecutions. That's route number 1.
I brought the first grooming gang prosecution case, claims Starmer in today's heated PMQs. But did he actually tackle the issue head-on, or is this another attempt to rewrite his political history? As the Prime Minister and leader of the opposition locked horns today, damning evidence emerged suggesting Starmer may have deliberately misled Parliament about his record on grooming gangs.
My record was going after where I thought something had gone wrong and putting it right. Far from covering up, I asked for that file so that I could have a look at it. On the back of that, I then changed the entire approach to prosecutions. She stayed silent throughout their years in government, and so did the entire front bench.
The accusations have sent shockwaves through Westminster. But what's the real truth behind these claims? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Let's dive straight into what happened during Prime Minister's questions today. The chamber erupted when Keir Starmer made a bold claim about his record on grooming gangs. Starmer declared, "I was the prosecutor that brought the first case."
He cannot name a single place because nothing is happening. He stood there at the dispatch box, promised 5 local inquiries. Mr. Speaker, in the last year of Conservative government, we had a gangs task force that found 500 perpetrators, protecting thousands of victims. We launched that inquiry that he's talking about, but more still needs to be done.
Shadow Home Secretary held 352 external meetings during 20 months. How many were on this issue? Not one.
He went further, stating that when certain files caught his attention, he changed the entire approach to prosecutions, essentially positioning himself as the hero who corrected previous failings. But here's where the timeline becomes critically important. Multiple grooming gang prosecutions occurred before Starmer even took office as Director of Public Prosecutions in 2008. The chronology of these cases completely undermines his claim to have initiated the first prosecutions. It's not just a minor inaccuracy, it's a fundamental misrepresentation of the historical record. What makes this exchange particularly striking is how Starmer framed his involvement.
He keeps talking about local inquiries, yet they have not got going. And they haven't got going because local authorities don't want to investigate themselves.
I strongly believe we should listen to victims, and we've been listening to victims on this side for decades and working with victims for decades.
Local inquiries cannot force witnesses to appear. Local inquiries can't force people to give evidence under oath.
He didn't just claim credit for policy changes, which would have been more defensible, but specifically stated he brought the first case. The parliamentary record captures this clearly, and it's this specific assertion that has ignited such fierce criticism. When we examine court records from places like Rochdale and Rotherham, we see a pattern of cases that contradicts Starmer's narrative. These prosecutions have a complex history, spanning multiple administrations and leadership periods at the Crown Prosecution Service. Starmer's tenure certainly saw developments in prosecution approaches, but the documentary evidence simply doesn't support his claim of being first.
The Prime Minister's safeguarding minister admitted on the floor of the House that there was a cover-up of the child rape gang scandal.
There are recommendations already in place about the change that needs to be taken. They sat on a shelf under the last government. We are acting on them. We are providing for local inquiries. I oversaw the first grooming gang prosecution, which was in Rochdale more than a decade ago.
The debate over local versus national inquiries reveals another layer of this controversy. As noted in parliamentary records, the opposition has highlighted a crucial procedural flaw. Local inquiries cannot compel witnesses or force evidence under oath. This technical distinction isn't merely bureaucratic, it strikes at the heart of whether these investigations can effectively uncover the truth. Without the power to compel testimony, local inquiries face substantial handicaps that national ones don't. Starmer's defence hinged on his assertion that, far from covering up, he personally requested files and implemented changes. While there's evidence he did oversee policy shifts during his tenure, characterising himself as the pioneer who brought the first case stretches credibility when faced with the documented chronology of prosecutions.
It didn't cover this scandal in detail. In Manchester, just last year, authorities were still covering up abuse. Whether it's the streets of Birmingham or the town hall of Bradford, it is chaos and cover-ups with Labour councils. Mr. Speaker, he says we should listen to victims. The victims want a national inquiry. We haven't had a national inquiry. We had the child sex abuse inquiry, which Conservatives launched. There is still more to be done.
Beyond the parliamentary theatre of who did what first lies a far more disturbing reality. The system designed to protect our most vulnerable children has catastrophically failed them, and the evidence from Manchester and Bradford reveals exactly why local authorities investigating themselves is like asking a fox to report on henhouse security. While politicians squabble over timelines and personal achievements, the victims of these horrific crimes have been remarkably consistent in their demands. They're not asking for local inquiries.
And they failed, of course, to implement a single recommendation for the independent inquiry into child sex abuse. I was the prosecutor that brought the first case. And when that file was brought to my attention, Mr. Speaker, I noticed that one of the defendants had not been prosecuted previously.
Nothing is happening. On the last day of term, he had his minister come out to water down the promise to say they would provide funding.
They're specifically calling for a national investigation with teeth. And there's a critically important reason for this that both parties conveniently overlook during their parliamentary performances. Local inquiries suffer from fatal flaws that render them virtually useless for delivering justice. Unlike national inquiries, they lack the authority to compel witnesses to testify or force evidence to be presented under oath. This isn't just a technical distinction, it's the difference between uncovering painful truths and allowing perpetrators and enablers to hide behind a wall of silence. The Conservative government's own child sex abuse inquiry actually provides the exact template for what victims have been demanding. It demonstrates how a properly empowered national investigation can operate effectively. Yet despite having this model readily available, there remains an inexplicable resistance to applying it to grooming gang cases.
Mr. Speaker, he's not the Director of Public Prosecutions anymore. He is the Prime Minister. People want to know what he is going to do now, not talk about what he did years ago.
Which was then lauded by the government we were doing the right thing and brought those prosecutions. So my record...
A reluctance that crosses party lines and suggests political considerations are trumping victims' needs. Manchester and Bradford stand as damning examples of what happens when authorities are tasked with investigating their own failures. These inquiries inevitably create conflicts of interest where exposing institutional wrongdoing would damage the very organisations conducting the investigation. It's a system practically designed to suppress uncomfortable truths rather than expose them. The government's grand claims about investing more in delivering truth and justice deserve intense scrutiny. Victims don't need empty promises or political posturing. They need concrete action that manifests in properly funded investigations and the implementation of recommendations from previous inquiries. Without follow-through, such statements amount to little more than hollow rhetoric.
I strongly believe that we should implement the recommendations that have already been made. And that is what we are doing.
Harriet Harman wants one. The member for Rotherham wants one. All of the victims I have met want a full national inquiry.
What's particularly galling about the parliamentary spectacle we witnessed is how it distracts from a fundamental question. Why, after all these years, are victims still begging to be heard? Their calls for a national inquiry aren't motivated by political allegiance, but by the substantive, legal and procedural necessities required to deliver justice. Today's parliamentary spectacle confirms what many have suspected all along. Neither political camp is truly prioritising justice for victims.
We are asking for a full national inquiry. Andy Burnham wants a national inquiry. He's not Conservative, he's Labour.
We've had a national inquiry. We've had recommendations. There are hundreds of recommendations that have been made in relation to this issue. It is a serious issue.
While they exchange verbal blows and selective facts across the dispatch box, the fundamental issue remains unaddressed. The system failed these children. What we're witnessing is the continuation of a troubling pattern where political expediency trumps meaningful action. The blame game persists while recommendations from previous inquiries gather dust. The current government's approach of implementing existing recommendations and conducting local inquiries falls short of what victims have consistently demanded. The true measure of leadership isn't found in scoring political points, but in having the courage to confront uncomfortable truths through a comprehensive national inquiry that can't be controlled or contained.